Good morning. My name is Adrian Goldfarb, Chief Financial Officer for DUOT Technologies Group. This is another in a continuing series of executive interviews with executive management here at the company. And today I'm joined by Scott Carns. Scott is the Chief Commercial Officer for the company, has held that role now for about 6 months. And we're going to be spending the next 30 minutes just talking about what his views and perspectives are on the company. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thank you, Adrian. Appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, let's start off. You've got a few years with the company. I'll let you describe how many. Can you give us a little bit of history and background of your time with the company?
Sure. I actually started working with the company in 1998, before it was formerly DUOT Technologies. I own my own software networking business. We were contracted by the parent company to upgrade the company's networks and IT systems, Y2K, all that kind of fun stuff that was going on back then. And then in October of 2000, I was hired on as the director of IT to run the IT department for the organization. In 2001, we spun DUOT Technologies off into what it is today. I maintained that role as director of IT for a period of time, and then just started progressing through developing the company. Back in 2001, there was, I believe, 7 DUOT employees at the time. So we've since grown quite much larger than that. But I've had a variety of roles, everything from running IT to being the sales guy, to being the service guy, to being the engineer, everything that it took to kind of grow the organization.
Okay. What changes have you seen in the last 20 years or so?
Oh gosh, not just within the company, but the evolution of technology. Technology, probably every 3 to 5 years, kind of hits a peak and a curve and a migration path. And us being a tech company, I've watched our solutions evolve throughout that same life cycle with everything. We started out working with analog camera technology 20 years ago. Now we're into the latest versions of 8K machine vision technology, which is night and day compared to what we had 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah, we've had a couple of your colleagues in the studio here who've given us some discussions about the technology itself. So we'll get to that a little bit later. Our shareholders and investors often ask about how we got into the rail business. What was the catalyst for that? Because I understand you had some involvement in that.
Sure. It was very interesting. Coincidentally, we have our headquarters across the street from CSX's old engineering offices. And so 20 years ago, the buildings across the street were fully populated. When we first went to market, it was with the intent of leveraging some of the automation technology that we had out there with regards to plant automation, PLCs, instrumentation control systems. Allen Bradley, Rockwell Automation was one of our big partners, and they had developed a product called a safety PLC. And CSX was interested in this PLC product for remote control of some of their rail drawbridges. So they called Rockwell, and Rockwell's like, oh, there's a little shop right across the street from you. And it was all about this kind of stuff. And so they sent over an army of like 15 guys over here, and we had 3 of us in the room. And we convinced them that, sure, we can automate a drawbridge, no problem at all. And even though we had never set foot on a railroad track before or anything like that, but they gave us about 8 months, gave us a bridge in Wilmington, North Carolina, and we automated it. We sat here in Jacksonville and through the human machine interface, we're pressing buttons, making it go up and down, and everybody's happy. It was very, very cool.
Right. Obviously, the big development for the company has been the Railcar inspection portal. It's the mainstay of the company's product line today, and I know you had some personal involvement in that. Can you tell us a little bit about how that got started and what your involvement was?
Yeah, so back 2001, obviously September 11th occurred, and the railroad industry, the country for that matter, shifted to focusing on securing critical infrastructure and assets. The Department of Homeland Security was formed. The railroads, since we were working within them, made a decision to look at their 50, 100-year-old infrastructure, went to the Senate Subcommittee on Transportation Security and made a decision to say, we're gonna secure our own assets to your standards. And so DUOT was instrumental in assisting the railroads in doing that. As a part of that, we were involved with all the railroad police departments, the Class 1 police departments. Union Pacific was a big client at the time. And I got a call from the chief of police out there that they were having a problem in West Texas with U.S. Customs and Border Protection stopping freight trains moving eastbound because of illegal riders and smuggling that was taking place. So they asked me to come out to El Paso and meet with the team and basically explain to me what the problem was, and told us, said, look, if you guys can figure out a way that we can inspect trains for illegal riders, we'll consider it and see if we can put it into use. So we developed what was called the train rider detection system at the time, about 90 miles east of El Paso, out in the middle of the desert. It was a very simple portal structure with cameras on it. Train would go through. We had written at the time video analytics to look for human-shaped objects on the train, on the freight cars.
Would that be an early version of AI?
Very early version. Very early
version. Interesting.
Yeah. That's a whole other story how video analytics came to be. But yes, that was kind of a predecessor to what we do today. But because we were taking pictures of trains in transit, the mechanical inspection department at Union Pacific was like, oh, can we see this, that, and the other thing on these rail cars?
I see.
And we're like, well, yeah, we have pictures of it right here. And so that's what really began the metamorphosis of the TRIDS into what is the Railcar Inspection Portal today.
Okay. You know, the company, as you're well aware, is very IP rich. Some of it is publicly known, obviously, through our patents. And some of it is more internal. It's, if you like, the secret sauce, as it might be called. What was your involvement with the IP? Because I understand you had a little bit of involvement in the early days with it.
Yeah, most everything that we came up with really started from conversations that I would have with customers and clients about the problem cases. I was always the point man, point of contact. Meet with these organizations, napkin drawing, kind of here's the problem set. I'd bring it back and work with the engineer and the technical teams to figure out a solution for the problem. And so I wasn't the 500-pound head in the room for sure, but I was very instrumental in kind of wrapping the commercial aspect of the tech into a product so that we could go out there and deploy it and repeat it over and over and over.
Right. I'm going to switch gears a little bit on you here. Can you tell me about the role of a chief commercial officer?
Sure, absolutely. Very interesting enough, when I was offered the position, I really didn't know what a chief commercial officer was. It's kind of one of those new C-suite positions, and so I went and did my homework on it to understand it. But essentially, my responsibility is in our organization. I'm the front end. I'm the tip of the spear. My team, we are responsible for interfacing with all the customers. We develop the marketing requirement documents for the projects. We also handle all the financial aspects on the front end with regards to contract negotiation, sell price of our equipment, our technologies and systems. But we always act as the primary interface to the customer.
So since I've been here, Scott, and I've been working with you, you embody to me the concept of relationship selling. Can you tell me the profile of our customers now and also going forward?
Sure. With regards to the customer base, part of it is defining your target demographic. Obviously, we're very rail-centric in the Class 1 freight railroads. And also here in North America. We've yet to expand overseas, but it's something we'll do in the future. But typically, we're interfacing with the C-suites at these different railroads to integrate our technologies into their corporate expansion plans. And that's critical for the growth, because we just don't want to sell widgets or systems one at a time. We want to be integrated into their corporate plan as far as their growth, their expansion, and what their foresight is going to be. So it's very critical that we integrate with these guys, articulate that message internally, and sell our solutions inside. And I've always said that we're a solution sell. You know, we're not selling widgets, we're not selling boxes of things. It's all about an integrated solution. And then how does that automate or modernize legacy processes that they have.
That's actually a very key point that you made. Solution selling. Pretty much, if I sat anybody in that chair from any company, they'll say, "Oh, we sell solutions and so forth." I think that here at DUOT Technology, I do actually see that we really are solution salespeople. And my concept has been that what we do slightly differently here is we do listen very closely to the customer. And we've seen an example of new products that have come out that have purely been driven by customer demands, not something that we just created in the lab. Can you comment on that a little bit?
Sure.
Am I on base?
No, you're absolutely tracking. We look for greenfield markets. I don't want to have products or solutions that already exist out there. I don't want to build a better mousetrap. And so what we're trying to do is hone in on these areas of interest for the railroads and for our other clients, to where we can actually develop technology from the ground up and solutions from the ground up to solve that problem. I believe we have a 5, 7, 10-year curve with that tech. So we get into market, we own the market for a period of time. By then, people catch up, but now we need to pivot. What's the next trick? Where are we going next? And so that's always being plugged into your customer and client base and understanding their pain points and how you can alleviate it with technology.
I got you. That leads into kind of my next question, which is that obviously we're very heavily focused in the rail business right now. We're looking at logistics and so forth, and we've got some fledgling efforts in that area. What markets do you think we'll be expanding into over the next few years?
I like building the story of supply chain logistics, where, like you mentioned, we're heavily penetrated in the railroad. Well, that's just one aspect. Railroads are all involved in intermodal transportation. Intermodal is trucks, trains, boats, airplanes for that matter. And so what I'd like to see is an expansion into trucking, into leveraging some of the technology we've used on the railroad into those markets, and eventually become the leading supply chain logistics technology solution provider.
Right. And the other question that often comes up from, particularly from investors in the company, is they ask about the sales cycle. I know the sales cycle up to fairly recently was quite long. I mean, by the time you got in and implemented the concepts until you got to a deployed system. But has the sales cycle changed now, and is it speeding up, or how is that developing?
It's pretty much the same. When you're doing a solution sell, at the volume we're talking about, the numbers that are multi-million-dollar opportunities, that typically takes 18 to 24 months. You've got to get them interested. You've got to get into their budget cycles and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the critical path of that. But once you're in, now that can become accelerated. They buy one, now they want 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Case in point is one of our Canadian customers. They started with 4 systems. They've expanded to 7 systems, and now they're expanding on each of those. So what the plan is, knowing that we have a small Class 1 railroad base in North America, is get the systems in and then work on the expansion plan from within.
Yeah, I mean, our markets are very, very clearly defined from the standpoint, because people also ask, what's our competition? And it's not that we don't have competition, but we're in such a specialized area that we've got a pretty good, unique selling proposition.
Absolutely.
And I wondered what your comment was on that.
No, absolutely. It's great as somebody that's driving sales. We know exactly who to sell to. There's no debate. There's no question. Which is why we don't have to do a lot of the marketing to try and find people. They know us, we know them. And so really it's more of a matter of convincing them that, yes, we are the technology for your organization, and getting inside there and embedding ourselves.
Right.
And so once we do that, we're starting now to make a pivot into transit railroads, which is now you're into pseudo government as opposed from these private railroad companies. So it's a little bit different sales cycle and mechanism. But really the sky's the limit. As you mentioned, we don't have really true direct competition.
Right.
There's people that do variants of what we do, but there's really nobody else, apples to apples, that does exactly what DUOT Tech is capable of.
Yeah, which is great news obviously from the company standpoint.
Right.
And should bode well for our growth. Well, I appreciate all of the very in-depth answers that you've given. Typically, I end my interviews with asking about anything you'd like to share with the audience? It could be a humorous story from your past. If I trip you up just a little bit, I know you've had a very long and varied history, including being a military policeman at one time. So feel free to share any stories you'd like on that.
Well, one of my favorite ones is when we were doing the train rider detection system out in Texas. We spent weeks and months out in the desert trying to figure out how to detect people on a train. And so we were running all these simulations. We literally bought mannequins and put them on the cars in El Paso and would run the mannequins through the portal. But we got all done with the project and we were ready for the big test. And so all these people from Washington, D.C., from Customs and Border Protection, there was a whole room of people out at this station. And we did the first demonstration, and we had DUOT people in El Paso that were, loading the train with actual bodies and stuff like that. We run the train through, the system works, we detect people, everybody's happy, it's a big success. And so about an hour later, we're just kind of milling around, conversing, having coffee, and all of a sudden the alarms go off on the system. And my first thought, it was like, oh no, I hope this isn't bad, and sure enough, everybody goes over to the console and sees, oh, there's an illegal rider on the train, and they send a guy over there, a customs officer, to stop the train and get him off. And one of the execs from DC was like, how much did you pay that guy to get on the train? I'm like, I'm never telling.
Never telling. That's right. It's a great setup.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. This has been another in a series of executive interviews of DUOT Technologies Group senior management. We will continue to do these interviews time to time, just to give shareholders and investors an ability to look and see and hear in depth from our executives about their perspectives on the company and the industry. My name is Adrian Goldfarb, and the company is DUOT Technologies Group, listed on the NASDAQ, symbol DUOT.